even as a senior cardiac surgeon, I never negotiated my salary. How stupid is that? 11 years of working. How stupid. Because I didn't know that it's possible. And then I turned on the other side. And after, I don't know, a couple of while, I spoke to my former peers. And they were like, oh, yeah, I do have a different contract. And yes, I do have a different contract. And I was like, guys.
You didn't realize it was possible.
Definitely not. And so that's why I'm really passionate about helping women and putting me in their corner, because we always seek for help. And I think we can make use of every little help we can get.
Hey, my name is Lisa Hugo, and I'm obsessed with helping other people find and develop their voices so they can go out and take on the world, be seen as an authority, expert, and speak their truth with utmost confidence because they know that what they have to share will connect with their audience and make a difference. I studied performing arts and spent 20 years of my career traveling the world as a professional singer-songwriter. I teach you the secrets to speak up and be heard, overcome your fears, to build your speaking skills, and learn how you can use your skills to make a change both in your own life and the lives of others. This is your one-stop shop for all things confident speaking. This is Impact Through Voice. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Impact Through Voice podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo, and today I'm sitting down with Kerstin Brehm. Now, Kirsten is a cardiac surgeon. I hope I got that right. And she's got over 10 years of experience in that field. But now she has pivoted into mentoring women in business. Now, I'm really curious to find out why she pivoted, and I'm sure you are too. So welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, great to be here.
Okay, so we're really curious to know why you pivoted away from such an esteemed field and with so many years of experience and training. But before we get onto that, I want to know, what is it that you're doing now?
Okay, I'm Kirsten. I'm a cardiac surgeon turned career and business strategist, as you just said. So I'm doing career mentoring for ambitious women in predominantly male-dominated fields. And because that's where I come from. I'm coming from cardiac surgery. Then I turned into a healthcare consultant. I've been a director at the Big Four, at Deloitte. And now I'm actually, what brought me to Dubai is I'm a managing director for an international corporate. So I'm working as a managing director for the Middle East for a healthcare provider.
Right. So you've got many hats that you're wearing and lots of experience in different fields.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. But we need to know, why did you pivot away from cardiac surgery?
Okay, so that's not a short answer. So basically, I knew that I wanted to be a surgeon from an early age. So I think there are pictures of me with 3 years old, having my doctor's kit all over. And what was really special was that I didn't want to be a doctor. I specifically wanted to be a surgeon. So I really knew that I wanted to operate. So that was what I wanted to do. Then obviously I ventured into cardiac surgery because that's the best surgery, actually, because we are operating at the open heart and the adrenaline is going. So that was my goal.
Amazing.
And when I started out, I was telling my by then boss, because he asked me, where do you want to go? And I said, oh yeah, I want to be in your seat. And so I want to be a head of the department. So that was for me for sure. I want to do that. And then as the time went by, I think I was the youngest really board certified cardiac surgeon in Germany by that time. Then I got a senior consultant in cardiac surgery. And as I grew in that field, I was experiencing a lot of hurdles and obstacles women face in that field. So by that time, we have been 9% female senior cardiac surgeons. So that's a really small number compared to the overall number. And I knew that the political parquet, as you can say, is not ready yet for us females. So, and then I thought, okay, maybe that's not my goal anymore. And by that time I was 35. And so being in my mid 30s and thinking, okay, that's the end of my career. It's going nowhere. And that was scary. And so I thought, no, I want to still have an impact, and I want to change the system actually, and to have an even bigger impact than being a head of a department. I wanted to have a bigger impact on the healthcare scene. And that's why I transitioned into healthcare consulting, to really change the system and to really work towards the future of healthcare.
So basically, you reached a point, you're saying, in your career where, I mean, you were doing surgery, you were practicing as a cardiac surgeon, but you wanted to go to that more hierarchical position, and you saw that there wouldn't be the opportunity there.
I saw that there probably will be the opportunity, and that's what everyone kept telling me, that probably I can do it. But then I thought, I don't want to be it. I don't want to be in that maybe not female-friendly environment for the rest of my life, or my working life, basically. Yeah. That's what said, okay, I have to change that, but I still want to make an impact, and I still want to be a boss, actually. That was, okay, I want to be at the top, and so I tried a different angle.
So now you're in this role of working in the system as the head of the department and helping to change things on that front. How's that working?
Sometimes better, sometimes worse. So what is helping, and what with me being in the driver's seat is definitely better, and I can help more women to rise in the hierarchy. And it's helping me to raise awareness in between my male colleagues. So, for example, being a director at Deloitte, we had those yearly performance reviews. They were called round tables, where we were assessing from senior manager downwards. And a colleague of mine, he was telling us, oh yeah, we have the girl and we have the guy, and which one should we promote? And then the discussions were going on, and he said, oh yeah, but she's really, really good. And then, yeah, but we can only promote one because we don't have that many places for this year's promotion. And then he said, oh yeah, okay, then we take the guy. Because luckily the girl isn't working for money, and the guy, he always said that he wants to have the promotion, so we are promoting him. And luckily for her, I was there, because normally what happens is like, then everyone said, okay, if he's saying that and she's still content, so let's do that, that's a good solution, and then we move on. And luckily for her, because I was like, come on guys, can you hear what you're saying? That's not fair. She's doing the better job, but he's more vocal. And that's because we communicate differently. So we can't do that. We can't do it because someone speaks up and someone maybe doesn't for herself. So that's where I have the impact, basically.
So you're saying men and women communicate differently. It's not that one will be more confident, because you can have men who are also shy to speak up for themselves, and you have women who can be outspoken. But tell us about how you see men and women speak differently.
Yeah, it probably roots sometimes into our childhood as well, because there is kind of humility bias we all have, like a modesty bias, because girls were always we were always told, like, yeah, don't brag about your achievements, don't show up and be a show off. And that's more with women or with little girls than with the guys.
I'd agree with that.
And then we have the different communication styles. We have the more horizontal communication. That's what normally women tend to have. We are all about integration and having everyone on board and engaging everyone. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. And then we have the vertical communication of men. And it's all about hierarchy. It's all about where in the power game are you placed and where in the hierarchy are you. And as soon as they know that, then it's fine for them. So that's the basic principle of the vertical communication. And of course, there are always exceptions of the rule, that's for sure. But basically, that's how the sexes communicate differently.
Can you give us an example of vertical communication?
Yeah, for example, when we stick with the rank, so I had a colleague back in the hospital, and every time our boss told him something, that he should do something, he was always telling, yes, Mr. Professor, yes, Professor, yes, Professor.
Right.
And I was furious about that, because I was, oh my God, what are you doing? That's ridiculous what you are doing.
It's almost like, yes, Your Highness.
Yes, exactly, because everyone knows that he's the boss and he's not. That wasn't something you have to state all the time. But later I learned that that's the basic principle of the rank recognition. And so as soon as I learned that, I was like, okay, I'm going to try. And it's working so much better for especially difficult conversations. So if I go into a difficult conversation, maybe say, okay, hi, board member XYZ, you're talking to me, Dr. Brehm, managing director of XYZ. I feel a bit ridiculous, but no one else is. Actually, everyone else in the room is like, oh yeah, great. So now we have a common understanding, so now we can move on. So that's one example of the vertical communication.
Interesting. Do you think it's more prevalent in the medical field than elsewhere? Because I don't think we see that so much in normal business, corporations.
You do.
Multinationals.
Definitely you do. If you start looking, then you'll definitely see it. It's the rank recognition. The other thing is like how to promote yourself, how to speak up for yourself. And if you have a look, especially if you're working maybe in corporate, and have a look at your male colleagues and just observing what they are doing, how often do they tell your boss what they do, what they did, what they have achieved, and then compare it to how often you do it as a woman, there is a whole difference. And the same with like power symbols. The Ferrari we are seeing out there on the streets.
Yeah.
Who drives it usually?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it is prominent actually in every industry.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. So you're saying that the women, and I'll agree with this, hold themselves back because they're not so confident to speak up. And as you say, it's something which is instilled into us as we're growing up, that we don't want to be boastful. And I actually have a lot of clients who say that to me. How can I present myself and with all of my achievements without sounding like I'm boasting? So how do you help them?
Mm-hmm. Totally. That's the first thing I get. It's like, yeah, but it's so cocky doing that. Yes. And then I start what I just told you. Okay, have a look at how your male colleagues are doing that and then find ways authentic to yourself. So I tell them, start small. Just write down every day at the end of your working day, write down 3 things you did. Just write it down. Then review it at the end of the week. And then make a plan to tell at least one of that your boss the next week. And it's not about making an appointment and forcing it, but there are, and if you think about, and we're making a list about what are the situations they encounter the boss and where they can put it into naturally. And then we say, okay, then next week you're doing that, and you're saying that to your boss maybe when you meet him at the car park or wherever. Yeah. So it's small steps, and you have to start small. And when you start, the first few times, obviously, you feel a bit strange and it's a cringe moment. Yeah. But when you stick to it, it gets into a routine because no one else besides yourself is thinking that it's strange.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's just you think, and because you're self-judging.
Exactly.
And nobody else is really thinking that way.
Yeah. And
in fact, they'd probably be very, happy to hear what you've achieved, and that's elevating you in their eyes.
Yeah, definitely. And all the time my clients telling me, yeah, but that's part of my job. That's not a huge achievement. I just did my job. And yes, for sure, you just did your job. But if you turn the view and see your boss and you have your male colleagues telling him all the time what they are doing, either being special or not, but he knows exactly what they are doing, and you're the one not telling him, who will he promote? Who will he know, and who will he think, oh yeah, this guy is doing much, so I promote him. From you, he doesn't do much, so maybe he's thinking you're not doing that much.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like the idea of the list. So I teach this as well, and I call it the badass list, because when you write down what you've achieved, whether it's 3 things this week or whether it's just looking back on your career to date or what you've achieved, even if it's in your personal life.
Totally.
And you actually write it down and see it, then that helps you to gain perspective on how good you are, basically, because we do have a tendency to put ourselves down.
Yeah, totally. I'm calling it the I Am Remarkable workbook.
Oh, that's good too.
I have that in my online course. That's one of the workbook, because that's exactly the same. And there it's in there as well. Like, sit down, write down all the things, whether being private, everything that comes to your mind.
Yes.
And that can be, I'm great at communication, or I'm great at helping others, or I don't know, I'm great at organizing events. I don't know, but write down everything, and it's quite a lot that we are achieving.
Yep.
We are just not seeing it.
Yeah. I actually get people to do this as well when they suffer from severe anxiety getting in front of other people. And it's something similar. I'll say, when you're out with your friends and people are all listening to you, what is it about you that they are enjoying? Mm-hmm. Is it the way your charisma? Is it the way you speak? Is it the way you can tell stories? Is it that you're funny? But try to think about that so you know what your positives are. And once you see that, then that's going to help you in those moments when you're nervous getting up. It shouldn't be any different.
Yeah, no, totally.
So I'm interested to know then, based on how you're helping other people in this area, how has this helped you to get to where you are in your career? If you look back at communication, how has that helped you?
It helped me a lot. That's why I developed the SPARC framework. So that's my framework. I'm working with all of my clients. The SPARC stands for strategy, promotion, audience, relationships, and KPIs. So those are the areas you have to cater for and you have to work on. And some of the especially communication bits, I learned the hard way. Because from an early stage, I remember some conversations with my boss where he wanted me to contribute to a book. And I was like, okay, I can easily do that, but I want to operate. I want to learn how to operate. And I didn't want to be put in like, oh, she's doing like admin stuff. And I was communicating that to him. And didn't work well.
Right.
So he was totally, because for him it was an honor that he's showing me, okay, you can do that. And for me it was like, yeah, but I want to do the other thing as well. And obviously I haven't made my point clear enough. Mm-hmm. And that's the way to communicate. And it helped me to learn about different communication styles in difficult situations as well. Because when we have a look at conflicts and difficult communication, difficult talks, then it helps you. Because the realization that there are 3 levels in a conversation or in a conflict. One is the high talk, where you exchange arguments and you're really on a good level and just exchanging your points. Then we have the small talk, and there it gets a bit more trashy. It gets a bit more like, okay, that's not reasonable argument. And then the last is the move talk. And so knowing those and accepting, knowing that you can't move back. So if your counterpart is moving on to the small talk, you can't win with the high talk.
Right.
Because and I think every one of us probably has experienced that in their private life, like your partner being somewhere else and you just try to get sense into them. And the same is happening in the workplace as well.
Right.
And that helped me a ton. The same with non-verbal communication as well, to know when I have to say nothing and just to let it go. And just to, because that irritates sometimes the opposite as well, just to say nothing and just to, okay, wait and see what's coming. So those things, help me as well.
Right. And so then moving out of that and then moving into what you're doing now, communication must be then a big part of both your current position and also what you're doing with your business that you're building for yourself.
Definitely. And learning the vertical communication, it's more like learning a language, and it's not exchanging, it's rather to be bilingual. So I can communicate vertically, I can communicate horizontally, and I'm not thinking about, oh, I have to switch now. So it happens naturally, and that's the end stage you want to have, actually, and that's what I'm teaching. It's not the one or the other, so you don't have to give up the integration part and the horizontal communication, because that is important, and for leadership especially is important, what we bring to the table and why it's really great to have diverse teams.
Yes.
And that's what I try to accomplish, having diverse teams, because with the unconscious bias we do have, we tend to promote people who are similar like us, and I noticed that as well. So when I get to know ambitious women and they apply for a job, I have that bias obviously as well, because I'm thinking, oh yeah, she's good, she's similar to me. So we have to work against that and really asking ourselves, is this just because she reminds me maybe of me, or is she the best one for the job and the best one in the team? And yeah, so that all the principles are my daily life, and it helped me a lot.
I can tell you really love what you do too.
Definitely.
I mean, you're shining when you talk about helping, particularly women, then to empower themselves.
Totally, because I was seeking for a mentor and for role models, and I didn't have one. And I think all the things I learned the hard way, what all the men are secretly getting told, there seems to be a boys' club where they get to know every secret. So they learn, okay, for example, in the hospitals, yes, or in consulting as well, there are salary bands. But there are salary bands and salary bands. So there are differences in between. I didn't know that.
I'm confused. Salary bands.
Yeah, so salary bands is basically when you have one position, being it a resident in your second year or being it a senior consultant, you are on a specific salary. That's the same throughout the whole company.
Got it, okay.
But in each salary band, there's like 3 different categories. So it's not the same for everyone. And you can argue and you can negotiate that you're maybe in the 3rd one instead of the 1st one. So there are, even though it seems from the outside that everyone has the same salary, it's not.
Got it.
And such things you don't learn because no one tells you.
Yeah.
Because I never, even as a senior cardiac surgeon, I never negotiated my salary. How stupid is that? 11 years of working. How stupid. Because I didn't know that it's possible. And then I turned on the other side. And after, I don't know, a couple of while, I spoke to my former peers. And they were like, oh, yeah, I do have a different contract. And yes, I do have a different contract. And I was like, guys.
You didn't realize it was possible.
Definitely not. And so that's why I'm really passionate about helping women and putting me in their corner, because we always seek for help. And I think we can make use of every little help we can get.
So tell us a little bit more about your 5-point breakdown. Each step of the process. Yeah. So strategies, obviously, you have to know about your strengths, about your values as well, because they play a big part in where you want to go and which company might be the right thing for you. Then you obviously think about your goal. Where do I want to be? Short term, midterm, long term. Mm-hmm. And then you break it down in actionable steps. And then you have to put it on a timeline, because I'm all about implementation. It's not just a little strategy paper somewhere. It's all about the implementation. For the promotion part, it's all about yourself, because as we talked about before, you have to be your biggest advocate. And so it's really about learning how to promote yourself. And as we said, making the plan, like first trying it every 2nd week, then every week, and like implementing that. But it's personal branding as well. How do I want the outside to perceive me, being it online, being it offline? So what do I really stand for? What are my skills and what I want to put out there? That's on the promotion as well. The audience is the communication. And my clients are like, but I have an audience. I'm no keynote speaker. I'm no comedian. Yeah. You do have. Everyone you talk to, that's your audience. And you have to adjust to whom you're talking to. Yes. I'm talking differently if I have a difficult conversation with my boss or if I'm talking to my employee. So those are different communication styles, and you have to adapt, as we had before, being bilingual and adapt to the person. That's the audience part. The relationship is obviously all about your network, because you can never start too early building your network. Oh, I agree.
I definitely started pretty late, and then I had to catch up. And then moving to a different region, obviously, you have to start kind of from scratch again. True. Yeah. But really, how you want to build your network, how to reach out to people, and to which people and how. That's the other part. And then the KPIs to track it. So if you maybe want to grow your network, then saying, okay, I want to grow my LinkedIn connections by 20% in the next 20 days or whatever. Yep. But setting those KPIs and reviewing them and tracking them. So that's the K in the implementation.
So would you say this is more for somebody who is wanting to have their own business and be self-employed, be an entrepreneur, or does this work also within somebody who is employed in an organization?
It actually works for both. So I started out with employed people. So that's really my main focus and what's it for and what I'm doing with my online course as well. That's for employed women who want to advance in their careers within a corporation, within a big four or wherever. So that's working really well. And the same for businesses, because then I had women reaching out to me and saying, oh yeah, the communication part, can you help me with my investors pitch? And then it got really interesting because that's part of what I'm doing is investor relations as well in my other job. And I'm like, oh, okay, and you have to, it's all about storytelling. It's how about to get your message across, and then obviously how to present your product or your business for investors, but for clients and customers as well, being it patients. I have a lot of small clinics that are reaching out to become more patient-centric, or being it your business and your customers. And there, the SPARC framework is working just as good as for individuals.
Yeah. Your English is not your first language. No. So you grew up in German, Deutsch sprechen. And so how was it, when did you really master English? And has it ever been a barrier for you anywhere along your career? Because you speak great English now, obviously. But at some point, transitioning, was that ever an issue?
Actually, no. Actually, I don't know. Obviously, we learn English at school. And then for me, it was all about traveling at first. Because when you travel, it's limited when you are limited to German-speaking countries. There are not that many. So English comes in handy. So that was probably the first where I thought, okay, I can connect basically to the whole world. So that was my first, probably in school somewhere where I discovered that. And then I ventured out to, I operated actually in Laos, I operated in China, I operated in the US, in Australia, in South Africa.
So you were thrown into international situations.
So it's so nice to be able to communicate with all those people and basically all the research parts, and because I wanted to present, and so I had to research in order to present my work. It's all in English in medicine as well. And so, I never thought about being not a native speaker like holding me back from anything.
So I think if you travel, then suddenly your everything is opened up after school. But what I noticed when I lived in Germany, when I first moved there, was that people didn't have the confidence to speak in English. More so in the West, they were confident. The younger people, yes, but the older people not. And then when I went across and I worked quite a lot in former Eastern Germany, well, it was either German or Russian. Yeah. And so everywhere I went, I had my dictionary. So I was the one who, this is my second language. I'm now fluent, but so I understand. And also my clients struggle with this. And I think mentally they struggle with it more than they physically have an issue with the language. And it's just they tell themselves, oh yeah, but English isn't my first language, and I think I struggle with vocabulary. No, you speak great. You're just telling yourself that. So do you encounter that as well, especially here in this region where it's so multicultural?
Yeah, but I think especially in this region, everyone has their own kind of way of speaking English. And so I think especially in this region, it's a no-brainer to just talk and have your special way. Because if people don't understand you, and that doesn't happen often, they just ask. They say, okay, can you say it again? And so I think really getting yourself out there and being yourself, and don't worry about vocabulary or grammar. It will just come. And even if it's not 100% right, who cares? It's about the message and not about the words you're speaking.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think people just beat themselves up or worry too much, and that's what holds them back.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm interested to know then, now, when you're working with women, so you must, when we're talking about just do it, but there must be some situations where you encounter a person and she's just too shy to speak up, or there are certain things in the way that they speak which are holding them back. So in that case, they really need to address those areas, as well as not just build your confidence and speak up, but also to work on those skills underlying. Yeah,
definitely. And not only speaking, but also presenting yourself, how you sit, how you walk, how present you are, if you're having eye contact, or everything like that. And so we start out small. It's nothing. It's like Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't have to be from 0 to 100 in about a month. You have time, but you have to make the small steps. And where the strategy is coming into, it's like, really, what are the next steps? It's like, okay, so you get yourself out there and you talk up in a team meeting the next time. So we are doing that. Okay, what will you say? Then we practice it, because I think practice makes you perfect. And practicing it beforehand with a friend, with me, with, I don't know, your teddy bear, whoever. Yeah, just do it, because that's what I did before the presentations, or my first presentations. I would just stand up in my hotel room, being there at the conference, and just practice what I say. Then I recorded it. And then I listened to it, and I was like, okay, maybe I always have to do it slower, I know. I have to talk slower, I have to use different words. And that's how you progress. And that's really, it's a skill, and every skill is learnable.
Yeah, I tell everybody that you've got your own personal coach in your phone. Totally. Just video yourself, watch it back, and give yourself self-love, but also then look for those things that you can improve on, work on them, record, do it again, do the same process over and over again. Yeah. And that's how you get better. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And we are all, it's for everyone, I think. We are our worst critic.
Always.
Our hardest one.
Always.
That's the way it is.
Actually, I was told once that when you're creating video content, you should never edit it yourself. Yeah. Because you will always be looking for different things to what other people who are just accepting the message, would be looking for. So you get somebody else to edit it. Now, I've never really taken that advice, unfortunately, because I still do go through, this bit and this bit.
I think that's just natural.
Yeah, but I thought that was a great lesson, because it's true. And often you won't put something out there because you've criticized it so much. So you hold back and you sit on something when really you should just do it and put it out there.
Totally. And to be honest, if you're putting it out there, probably the first ones no one will hear and no one will listen. So we are doing it more for us, and we're worrying about us. I had it with a client recently. She was like, I'm so hesitant to put out a LinkedIn post. I was like, okay, what's holding you back? Yeah, people reading it and then they're judging. And I was like, okay, let's face it. You have at the moment 50 connections on LinkedIn.
Right.
You're putting out one post. What do you think will happen? How many people will see it? Probably 10. So no harm in doing that.
Yeah.
It's not like you're reaching suddenly a follower base of about, 2,000 just by putting out one post.
Yeah.
And just do it. And then she texted me actually two days ago, and she was like, I did it. It's out there. And it's helped so much that you said, okay, no one will probably read it.
Right. Yeah. So there's that. And again, it's baby steps, right?
Totally.
And consistency in creating content. Yeah. And so I have this motto: if you're not visible, you are invisible. And I think that goes across in all areas. It doesn't mean you have to be all over social media, although our social media presence does play a role when people are checking you out before you're going for a job interview, or if you're self-employed, then it plays a huge role in how people will perceive you before they get to make that next step.
I'm Googling every job application I get.
Yeah.
If I have a candidate I'm interested in, then of course I Google them, I go into LinkedIn, I see what they are about, what they put out there, of course. And that how careful you are in being consistent in between your CV and your LinkedIn and what you're putting out there is so important.
Interesting. Yeah. And so you're searching for their presence. What if they don't have a presence?
Then I have to ask them in the interview. Then, of course, Then
would that influence your decision or your judgment?
No, it doesn't. Okay. Unless it's necessary for the job to be. I don't know, if I'm searching for a social media manager, obviously that plays a role. I can't think of any job position I have at the company I'm currently work at where that would influence if I would employ someone or not.
I was thinking of doctors, because if a doctor doesn't have a presence online, then I feel like, who are they? What's their experience?
But if you have a look at the presence of doctors, I think it's a bit better in this region. I don't know why. Probably it's more important. But back in Germany, I don't know. I think probably only 1/3 of actually doctors are on LinkedIn or are on their social media presence. And when you look, if they are self-employed and if they work in a clinic and it's actually their clinic, the social media website, oh my God, they're looking, I don't know, as if they were out of the 90s.
Wow. Yeah. And I think I agree with you from my own experience back there. But for me, if I'm going to go to a doctor and I'm trying to decide which doctor I want to go to, I will Google them. Or at least go onto the hospital, check their credentials, check out where they're from, because nationality for me plays a role as to how comfortable I'm going to be with them. Not always, because you never tell by the name or the look, because, you know, we study everywhere in the world now. But just from my experience, that's
totally
important.
And it's so important. And especially in healthcare, we are not there yet because we haven't realized in healthcare, and that goes for hospitals likewise, that what we have in our personal life, because we Google everything, we are on social media, we are on our phone the whole time. But with healthcare, all of a sudden, that advancement and that technology is taking away from us. We have to go physically to a doctor's office. We try to find information. It's difficult to have information about the doctors. Then we go to the clinic. Then often we get a piece of paper. It's not like all of our records are in our phone and we can go and have a look at them. So that's basically has to change. And that's why I'm so passionate about the future of health. Because we just have in healthcare, we have to look up and we have to open ourselves to the world, because the world of the patients, and I'm not calling them patients anymore because they are customers, they are really now taking their health in their own hands. So we really have to become more customer-centric in medicine.
Okay, I want to talk about doctors and the communication skills of doctors, and how you know, in many cases, it's quite a skill, because you're dealing with all kinds of people. You're dealing with patients where you have to be compassionate. You have to speak in our terms, help us to understand. But then you're dealing with other doctors where you need to speak in medical terms. You're dealing with nurses who need to, you know, support you and be on your side. So you've got a lot of things that you have to juggle. It's not always good, right?
No, it's not. No, obviously we are all humans. And when we look at med school, it's nothing we really learn. So communication is not a topic in med school. Yes, you have bedside teaching, and it's now even getting better and better to have like real contact with real people and real patients. But it's nothing there's a huge focus on in med school. So either you're lucky enough to have it personally, like because you're an empathic person or not, and sometimes you're not. And then it gets really, really weird and awkward. So of course there are countless times where maybe the head of the department explained something to a patient, and about 10 minutes later the patient was asking me, so yeah, all right, but what did he say? I didn't understand a word. And that happens really often, because in medicine, it's a very exclusive language, because we have our own language. We can speak in all the medical terms and no one will understand beside the doctors, maybe the nurses, but no one else. And yes, it's good and it helps us sometimes, of course, but it's bad for the patient, because the patient is the one who seeks help and who is there and really trying to get as much information as possible what's happening with him. And the other thing you touched upon is the communication in the teams within the different like you have patients, nurses, doctors, then you have different specialties, and that's a huge issue as well. So for me, being in an operating room, I think that's where it all comes down to, because I think that's the part where it's the most difficult and most probably life-threatening mistakes are happening because of communication. And there actually we could learn so much from aviation, because there it's all about the human factor as well, because we have a pilot, yes, we have an autopilot, but we have a pilot, we have a co-pilot, and maybe the pilot has, I don't know, had a fight with his wife prior to flying a transatlantic flight. Then actually, for example, Lufthansa, and I'm sure the other airlines have it too, has a policy that there are backup pilots. So if he's having an issue, a personal issue, then someone can jump in. In medicine, no one has that. And we have, because normally within, for example, a cardiac surgery, the anesthetist, they want to go home. So they want to be that operation will be over as soon as possible. Then you have hopefully the surgeon who really cares about the patient and the outcome. Then you have the nurses who are like, oh yeah, that's the last patient of the day. I want to get over with. And then you have maybe the perfusionists who are like, oh my God, can I read a book? It's so boring. And so you really have such a diverse team where communication and communicating clearly, and more like in an aircraft, if they have to repeat stuff, that they really understood what you are telling them. That's extremely important.
It's interesting you compare it to aviation, and because that is a field which, you know, it's life or death, right? And the communication that has to go on within the plane, then with the pilots and with the ground crew and the air traffic control, and it always goes on seamlessly, you know. So interesting that we can learn from
Definitely
that.
we can.
And obviously, communication skills are key then in the air traffic control room. They have to get it right, and they can't make a mistake. And it's no different than to being in a surgery situation or in a hospital.
Totally.
So would you say, based on that communication skills are lacking in the education of medicine?
Yes, definitely. I think we can learn a lot about communication. What really difficult to learn is probably empathy. If we are talking about communicating with patients, I think probably the empathy part is you can't learn that well. Either you have it or you don't. You can get better, but I think there you will always have a difference in between people. Some are better, some are worse. But I think to learn basic principles about communication, about how to break bad news, because for us doctors, it's probably, I don't know, the 100th patient or the 1,000th patient, we are breaking the same news. For us, it's a routine. But for that one patient, it's the first one, and it's everything. It's their health and maybe their life. And to, acknowledge that and give them the attention, that's something you really have to, with all what's going on in a hospital, you really have to sit down and take your time. And that sometimes is difficult because you have emergencies, you have the time is ticking. Maybe it's the evening. You are, 2 hours over your time, and your wife is waiting, and and there are 5 more patients you have to see. And so I think that is playing a huge role as well, like the time management and the time pressure a lot of healthcare workers are on.
Yeah, interesting. But it's still communication, and that's where I find it very interesting to hear your perspective on that, because I know my perspective as a patient and how I would feel, or how I feel about doctors who don't take that time or don't seem to have that caring attitude. I was just at a doctor yesterday with my daughter, and she just made her feel so comfortable. She just had, as you say, that natural rapport, natural empathy. Yeah. I've read several studies about this, whereby that the communication of a doctor can or cannot lead or have a higher rate of leading towards litigations. Any feedback on that?
No, because we are humans and we make errors. And as said, communications are on so many different levels. And of course, in between the different professions in a hospital, in between the different specialists. And actually ego plays a role as well. Obviously, we are all human, and some have more ego and listening to others, and some don't. And so that, as said, we need to have more guidelines in medicine in order to keep those human errors as small as possible. So that would be the goal here. So similar to aviation, and what can we do and what can we implement? Obviously, there has been a lot implemented already. There are team timeouts and really communication structures within an operating theater. So there is a lot, but I think we can still improve there.
I think this would be a topic for an entire different podcast. We've drifted away, but all right. So bringing it back to communication and what you're doing now, and you're helping women, empowering women women, particularly in business, who are employed, but also people who are running their own businesses. Yeah. I want to know if somebody wants to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Definitely through my website. It's Dr. Kerstin Brehm. Then obviously I'm on LinkedIn. It's all the same. It's Dr. Kerstin Brehm, and on Instagram as well. And I usually work with my clients either one-on-one. So we have the sessions there. Obviously we go along my SPARC framework and touch upon every area we have there. Or you can work with me with my online course. It's Operation Success. So
awesome. You've got an online course?
Yeah, so it touches a bit on my operating past. It's Operation Success, where you have videos, we have workbooks. As I said, I'm Remarkable workbook, the salary negotiation workbook, and we have 3 different success paths within Operation Success, where you can look into from self-learning to masterminds. So you can work with me.
Sounds amazing. And I've seen you're also on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube it's still starting. So I have a feeling that content creation is taking over my time.
I know that feeling.
So yes, because I have something that you can download for free. It touches upon my SPARC framework, gives a brief introduction, and I have a YouTube series on that as well. If you need a bit more help and want a bit more background to the sheets you're having, then you can watch the YouTube series. Sometimes I take you around my life in Dubai. Can go with me cycling to the desert to learn about a bit more of the expert life in Dubai.
Sounds amazing. Yeah. Well, we're going to put all of those links into the show notes for you all when you're watching this and listening in and thinking, oh, that sounds amazing. I'd love to work with Kirsten. It's been amazing having you on the show and sharing so much. I've learned so much about the medical industry and the behind the scenes, but also the importance of communication and also for women to really be able to stand up and speak out. And that's a lot of the areas that I work with. So there's a lot of synergy there in what we're both doing. But thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you for the invitation.
Congratulations, you've just finished another episode of Impact Through Voice. You're well on your way to making a positive impact in the world with your voice. If you want more, head on over to lisahugo.com/podcast for show notes and all the links that we mentioned in this episode. Until next time.